Young and Hungry, Leudic's new initiative to spotlight and highlight the super cool creatives who are going into business and really new adventures, who are young and just hustling. So Leudic is a clothing e-commerce store that specializes in cozy, comfy, and super cute clothing for the modern wearers. And we are your Leudic co-founders, Rai and Kara. And today we will serve as your Young and Hungry co-host.
Yes, welcome guys. For everybody listening or watching, thank you for being here. Today on Young and Hungry, we are joined by the amazing Nick Alliston. He has so much insight to offer, so I'm really excited for you guys to listen to this one. He is the host of a brand new podcast called Very Important Opinions. It's an awesome name. It's super fun. And this is a brand new podcast that talks about intriguing, important, lighthearted debates and opinions just about the world we live in and some really fun subjects. He attends the University of Georgia and is a finance major. And I know that he has so much insight to offer anybody who's just interested about his process or anybody who is potentially interested in even having a podcast. He has the coolest creative process that I've ever heard. And I'm really excited for you guys to hear this one. So let's get started and hear from Nick.
Before we bring in Nick, we just wanted to talk to you a little bit about what Young and Hungry is and stands for. As Leudic, we wanted to have a platform that boosts and spotlights and highlights all the really cool young creatives and entrepreneurs and business professionals. We know as young co-founders and CEOs, it is hard to be taken seriously sometimes. And just being someone young and taking a new adventure, there's a lot of obstacles that come with that. So this podcast or YouTube video, however you want to watch it or listen to it, will just spotlight on the struggles that are there in the new adventures, but also the really cool things that come about. So today we're going to be listening from Nick about all things podcasting, which is something that's gained a lot of popularity recently. And just as it is hard to start, there's also some really rewarding parts of it. So with that being said, let's bring in Nick and talk about Very Important Opinions.
Welcome, Nick. Thank you so much for being here with us. We're really excited to have you today, only for our third episode. So we're excited that you're one of the first people that we're having on Young and Hungry. So I guess just to start off, just tell us a little bit about yourself and your podcast.
Yeah, I'm Nick Alliston. I am going to be a sophomore at University of Georgia. I started my own podcast. It's called Very Important Opinions. Basically, the point is it's just me and a rotating guest every episode, and we talk through some unpopular opinions and super lighthearted debates and just give our not so important opinions in the end. Yeah.
I love the name. I think the name is so catchy.
Yeah, the name is so good.
Yeah.
Also, it's super silly and fun, and I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually wanted to name it Not So Important Opinions, but that was already a podcast.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, well, Very Important Opinions is a good.
I like that one. I think
I went the opposite.
Sarcastic.
Well, just by I think recently, and I think just more as I've grown up, I've appreciated podcasts more. I don't think I would listen to podcasts in middle school. I don't know, but I just don't think I would. But recently I've been really into it, and I listen to philosophy podcasts to girl talk podcasts, just everything. And I think podcasts have also gained popularity recently. Most influencers and celebrities are starting a podcast. So why did you decide to start a podcast specifically? And what was your initial process in terms of equipment, and what's the platform you're going to put it on, and what's the format of the podcast going to be? Because those are really important things that can really set you apart from all the other podcasts.
Yeah. I started a podcast just because I sounded like a lot of fun. I don't feel like I'm great with video. I did I've done kind of a little bit of vlogging before, just as a joke, but I just felt like anyone can talk. So I feel like podcasting is just kind of easy. I like to talk. I like to just talk to people. That's why I would never have done it on my own. I had to make it with a guest. But I just thought it'd be fun to try. Hadn't tried it before. Setting it up wise, it is a little bit of a lot of equipment. One thing that's tough is since I didn't do a co-host and I'm doing a rotating guest, it's all mine, which is kind of nice, but also I had to take all the costs.
Right.
Which is a little bit tougher, but it was fine. I worked this summer, so it wasn't terrible. Equipment wise, it's a lot easier actually to start a podcast on your own, because really all you need to start a podcast on your own is like a USB microphone and some type of idea, and you can just plug it into the computer as long as your computer has like GarageBand on it or something, and then you're good. But when you have multiple people and you have to get like a audio interface to plug in multiple microphones to record them separately, and that's like kind of the biggest cost, is that thing right there. It's like I have like honestly a pretty small, like one of the cheapest ones, and it was still about like $100.
Because you want a good quality one, otherwise.
I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that you had to have multiple go into the same way. Like I didn't realize that you couldn't just like do a couple like voice memos or something like that. Like
Yeah. So like you could go around it, but one thing that's nice if you do this is the audios are actually recorded separately. So like if during my podcast I was to even just say something I don't like while he's talking, or sneeze or cough, as long as it's in my mic, I can just delete my audio as he's still talking. And I don't have to like lose the whole audio. So like when I go back edit, I can edit out like individual audios between me and my guests while the other one's talking. Like if you were breathing into the mic while I was talking, I could just mute his whole breathing into the mic.
Cool.
So that's like,
that's so cool. Yeah.
It's like most of the importance with it. But then like you just gotta have that, 2 mics, probably 2 headsets, a computer, and a headphone amp. That way you can have different volumes on your headphones. You don't have to hear at the same level.
Oh, interesting.
That's super cheap. That's about it. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Well, thanks for telling us that. All of that I did not know, so that's super cool. And I'm sure that was like a learning process. Like I know for us when we first started, there are so many things that like we didn't anticipate us needing. Like, I mean, obviously, like for us, our business model, I mean, we didn't have physical equipment the way that you're buying like microphones and stuff. But even if it's just like tax forms and all this stuff and like registering things, like I mean there's so many anticipated things that you have to put together to start something. So but you know, it's just a learning curve. But I guess, you know, moving on, what so far have you said would you say has been like your biggest difficulty, and what is something that you wish you knew when you started a podcast?
Yeah, my biggest difficulty was I've never done anything with like audio before, so just even understanding like a base level like audio editing and like producing of audio. Honestly, it took me way longer than you'd probably think. Like I know such basic knowledge of it now, and it took me just like a long time, just like how to like set my microphone to like be the right volume but not like staticky and everything. Like I don't know, that took me a long time. And then even just like how to go back and edit, like I pretty lightly edit my podcast, and like it took me way too long than it should have, and it probably will in the future. So that was something I wasn't prepared for. And then if I wish I did anything, it's probably just like reach out to someone who's done this before and ask them for personal advice, because I figure stuff out on my own, but I probably could have saved a lot of time because I spent a lot of time researching and like making mistakes and fixing them. And I probably could have avoided some of that if I had just reached out to certain people who have been through this. And I mean, this whole, like, even if I don't know people who have podcasts, I know people who have done like music and stuff, and it's all really the same. So it's podcasting, just almost a simpler version of producing music. So like I have friends who do music, and I could have easily reached out to them because it's really the same equipment.
I know for like my mom owns a dance school, so like for her recitals and stuff we'll have voiceovers, so I have like very elementary like knowledge about like sound quality, because I usually am not the one doing it. Like we have someone who's very good at it doing it, but I'm basically your assistant, so I'll be like, oh, like fix the bass there, and like it's too like you want to make them sound, so I have like that understanding. But like when I see them like work with their like whole thing and like just like fixing the voices, and I've always like, my parents, like they're all stage people, so like my dad does like acting and my mom dances, so like I've grown up around the stage and like just the technical side of it, and it is insane just like the amount of things that go into it to make you sound normal. So I like completely get that.
And this isn't even like half as complicated as that is, like with like bass and like tuning music. They're like,
and they'll add like lighting to it, and like lighting is all like electronic now too, because you just like control it in a certain way. It's not like you're like actually pointing the lights. You just say like, I want a yellow light in the middle of the stage at this moment of the song, and like so much equipment, and like they do it so easily. And like even like I know you're saying it's like a way easier version, but like I heard your podcast and it sounds so professional.
So good.
So you've done good.
Yeah, it also seems like it's just like a learning curve. Like, and I think that's the way with like a lot of new endeavors. And that's something, you know, like Ryan, I want to highlight, like, obviously for you to be able to figure all that stuff out, that took like quite some ambition and persistence and determination to want to like be able to make your podcast sound really good. Because when I first heard it, like your very first episode, I honestly, like, you could have convinced me that you've been doing it for a while. Like, I listened to it and you had like your intro song and like, yeah, everything transitioned really well. Like, so maybe you had some difficulty, but like from, you know, an outside perspective of somebody, like it sounds like it's produced extremely well, you know? So, but I mean, you always can ask people moving forward. And I know that that's something that like Ryan and I, the same struggle that we've been having, because like we don't really know a lot of friends per se that have started some like e-commerce or online, but honestly, like I don't even know if we know a single person who's done it. And so like for us to try and reach out to people to see the same things, it's like it has been difficult. And because of that, I think the same like sentiment that you just expressed, I think that there's been a lot of work that probably we could have not had we known, or like asked somebody or had somebody that told us these things, you know. It's just difficult.
I think the biggest type of like frustration is I'm really comfortable with Photoshop. Like I'm really great with that. Like no problem. I can work it. No problem. Like I understand everything. And then recently I started using Illustrator for logos, because you can't make logos on Photoshop. There have been so many times where I just wanted to like chuck my computer like across my room. I'm like, I don't care. We're done. This is not happening anymore. And like, even like watching tutorials and I'm like, okay, I got to pause it, move to my next screen, like actually figure out how to do it. And sometimes I just hate the Creative Suite like so much by Adobe. Like why? Like, I don't know why they make life so difficult. I'm like, if you know one, you have to like completely relearn everything for like the next program. So it's been like, even though like that's something I learned at school and I get graded on that, doing something that has no structure, because at school you have like guidelines and you're like, okay, this is what you need, this is what you, and like for this program it's like, all right, like whatever you want, like do something. And it's just like a whole different thing. So it's
I mean, what you guys are doing is way more complicated than me. But even with my audio interface came with like its own software like built in, like it's honestly really nice. And I started learning on that, but there's just like, I learned it pretty well, but there's so much to do on it because a lot of it's for music that I got so like overwhelmed. I ended up just switching back to GarageBand, and then I had to relearn GarageBand, which is way simpler, but like I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
Like I ended up wasting a lot.
I love GarageBand, iMovie, like it's great. I'll like do everything on like Premiere, just for like the cool fonts and everything. And I'll take that and put it on iMovie and export it because it's so much easier.
Yeah, but I feel like it's all like I see what you're saying when you start a program and like invest in one thing, like, and then all of a sudden you're like, this is not what I want. And then you have to restart and rebuild something from the bottom. And like you said, you're having to relearn GarageBand. It's so frustrating. Like,
yeah.
I know for me, like one thing that was really hard for us, so like for Rye, we're, you know, the good thing about Rye and I working together is that we're really different. And we work really well together because we have similar work ethics. But Rye is, she goes to art school. She studies fashion. I study business. They're two different sides of like this business that's kind of, you know, like the same coin. And so for her, like while she is really great at editing and all that stuff, and like I do not know how to make all these beautiful logos that she's been able to make for us. And like, I'm really appreciative to have that. For me, I've handled a lot more like legal side. And like, I don't know how to write terms and conditions. Like, I don't know how to write like private policies, privacy policies, and like all these things that, you know, went into the establishment of it. Like that, for me, that was the learning curve. Because it's like I don't know how to learn how to do these things. There's no, like, I don't think there's YouTube videos of like, here's how you write a terms and conditions. You know what I mean? It's like,
right, is this okay? I'm like, I don't know. If you think it's okay, go ahead. Like, I don't care.
Yeah. And so like, you know, while Rye's frustrations come out in like that creative side, like for me, it's been really difficult on the like back end and the establishment of the business to be able to, one, like make sure that our wholesalers and people who are helping us are the other businesses and warehouses and things, like they're going to receive everything the right way, and that like all of our shipping is in place, and that like our rates match up with normal shipping rates. Because like you have, you know,
Shopify, like talking other businesses, it's like, what are your prices? Like, are we charging too much?
Yeah. And like Shopify is great because it honestly, like, it's a plethora of stuff at your hands that they just say, like, basically you use as much or as little as you want. And it's great. But then all of a sudden it's like as if you had a form with that is full, like basically, you know, like a form you'd usually fill out your name and all this information about yourself. And it's 30 pages long and every single line is blank. It's like, great, there's all these things it hands to me, but I have to fill out every single portion of it because I don't, and like, it's all from scratch. And, you know, it's great in the way that you get to customize and have all this like control over what you do. and it's frustrating in the way that I have no clue how to do a lot of it, and so, but the same thing, it's just like such a learning curve. And like, I didn't even know you have software for microphones. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I guess, oh, right, go ahead.
No, just moving on from that. I know like before we started this, we were just talking about how we started a business during COVID, and we started in COVID because of COVID. I think this business got started because if life was normal, I don't think Kara and I would be like, you know what, let's start a new business, because we're just doing nothing all summer and sitting at home. Like we would have had something, like we would have done something, and we were just at home. And that's why it got started. And even though it's not the best time to get started, we started, which is, I think, is pretty cool. And same thing with you. Why did you, I think because you've had this time, you kind of were able to start a podcast, but how do you think COVID has affected you and your business?
Yeah. I feel like COVID is probably the reason it even started with me too, just because I had the time and had a lot of time to think about it and ended up just going for it. So in that sense, like without COVID, I don't know if I even would have started a podcast. But from like a audience perspective, I don't think I'm super affected by it. I think I could see it going both ways. I could benefit a little bit because people have a lot of time on their hands and it's kind of easy to listen to podcasts. But at the same time, I don't think I'll be super hurt in the future either, just because like podcasts often people listen to like while doing something anyways. It's not really like a super, like usually you don't just listen to a podcast and just sit there. Like usually it's like while you're driving or like doing homework, anything. So like even in bringing a schedule back, I don't feel like would be a super negative effect on me.
Yeah.
But it's just different.
Whether people have extra time now, maybe like now I feel like you could benefit from the extra time, but I agree with you about the thing. Like I know that, like about scheduling, like I know that when I listen to podcasts the most is like honestly like when I'm driving, like I just
the only time I sit and listen to a podcast if it's like I'm listening to like a really complex one. Like I'm listening to about like one about like science or philosophy. Like I've tried doing things during it, but I'm like nothing is retaining. Like I need to actually like sit and listen to this. But if it's just like fun, like people talking, then I'm like probably at the house or like doing something.
My podcast does not fit into the science and philosophy level of thinking, so that's all right.
But it's like, and it's like, I think that there's something to be said about something that is like not only just humorous, but like light in a way, like for example, why do we watch comedy movies when our lives are serious? It's because like it's like relief, and it's like entertaining and like makes us feel better. And like I think something that's really cool about and unique about your podcast is that, like, to my understanding so far, it is not these like heavy concepts that like drain your energy. It's like, you're able to talk about like fun, interesting questions and like, you're able to connect with people. And like, as the listener, you do feel like you can understand like you and whoever your guest is, but at the same time, like you are still learning about it, like the question that you had asked on your first one, like I know, that I like never had thought about that. I ended up like coming home and telling my parents about it, and we like talked about it. And like, I think that it's like really cool that you're able to like have a real conversation without like, that's light, but actually also like connect with people and, be a sense of like relief and learning at the same time. I think it's super like a cool duality that you have.
Yeah, that's definitely the goal. The idea is definitely lighthearted debates because everyone hears enough of the non-lighthearted debates. So
yeah, for sure. And like filling a hole that
funny too. It's not just like anything, but like the stuff like you like. It reminds me of like, is hot dog a sandwich? That's a fun debate that you can get into it about like with that. Like you can really like get into it.
Yeah, and the other thing is like one of the ideas I had, just like going to come with this idea of a podcast is like I know listeners like they care. Even if they don't know they care, like as they're listening, if they don't, either they're forming an opinion as they're listening or they already have one and they're kind of like internally rooting for someone like to say something, like say bring this up or like oh that's, I don't know, like it's almost like you're debating it with yourself or like what would I say if I was there, like it's just like it's a lot of involvement. And if I did something that was less lighthearted, like one of the other jokes of it, like at least at this point, like we have no credentials to be talking about anything, so I was talking about something like very important in life, like why would you choose to listen to me, like it doesn't make sense. But something like this, it doesn't matter, it's just like we're just like it's almost like it'd be like you and your friend debating it, but you get to listen to two other people debate it.
I really like the point actually that you just made, like the involvement, because I didn't think about that until you just said that. But like, I know for a fact, when I read like what the question was, I actually had formed an opinion in my head, and I was super curious to see like what you guys were gonna say on the different sides, and like, so like one, I think that is really cool that you're able to like engage a listener, because podcasts can be not the most engaging thing sometimes. Like a lot of times it can be kind of feel like a news report, you know, and like not something as lighthearted as yours, but like, you know, sometimes that for me, I was kind of delayed getting into podcasts, I think, than like people our age. Like I started a little bit later than some people I know. And I think it was because a lot of the ones that I just were listening to, they were just like
an audiobook that people are just
yeah. And honestly, like they kind of made me sleepy. Like, and then I discovered ones of, you know, like hosts that were engaging to me, and like people who were like, for something about yours that I really like is like you're sarcastic, and I really like that. Like you started your podcast and you're sarcastic in the beginning, and for me, like my whole family is super sarcastic, and so for me and like a lot of people, that comedy is like a good way to draw people in, and a good way to like feel that fun banter that, you know, people are going to want to listen to. So I think it's a great idea, and it was super cool.
Yeah, and what you mentioned about like you read the topic and you already formed an opinion is so true, because like I think a big one is like, I mean, one of the most popular ones is a hot dog, a sandwich. And like when that first came out, you know, like everyone you asked, you very rarely ask someone that for the first time they've heard it, and they're just kind of like, I'm not sure. Like they almost enter you're like, no.
Yeah. Or they're like, always been like, yes, it is. Like,
yeah,
no other way it is.
Like it's like instantly, like they're not usually just like gray about it. Like usually you're instantly like, no, it can't be a sandwich. And then like you listen to someone explain for 10 minutes why it is a sandwich. You're like, okay, it's definitely a sandwich. You listen to anyway.
I think debates like the one you've chosen, like things that are just prevalent in our life, without even thinking about it, we have like really strong opinions about it. Because things about that's like vague in our life, like what's the meaning of the afterlife and like our conscience and stuff, like you have to like really think about it and like sit and figure out where you stand. But if you're like, is an Oreo better with or without the cream? Like you're either like really for it or really against it. Like you have a very strong opinion, which I think is really fun when you debate. Like it's not that fun when you're like trying to figure out each other's opinions, where you're like, I have a really strong opinion and let's see who wins.
Yeah.
Well, also like that's an opinion that we don't like consciously make, which is funny. Yeah. Like I think is what you're trying. Like for me, you know, for anybody like watching or listening, Nick, do you want to say what your question was so they can just understand?
Oh yeah, it was, should singers be allowed on talent shows?
Right. And so like, first of all, I've never thought about that question.
I know, like I was like, oh, interesting.
Yeah, I liked that you brought up a new point, like a new perspective and stuff. I was like, whoa, I've never thought to think about that. So first of all, that was cool because you know you're making your listeners like think about it. And then another thing is like I said it to my brother, I said it to Christian originally. I was like, oh, like this is what Nick's one was about, and he was like, yeah, of course they should. What do you mean? Like so quick to even. Like say something. And I was like, well, you should listen to their points and like see what they say, because like both of you and your guests, you know, have like some super valid points. And I was just like, makes me think about, you know, like some, you know, and it's fun because, you know, you do get to think and you're like learning a little bit. But no, I think that like the theme of what you're doing is really cool because like it does involve listeners, which I think is like unique for a podcast.
One thing that's was super fascinating too is like I spend a lot of time like looking at topics, just like whether anytime I'm talking with someone, I like ask them if they have one, because people just debate this stuff all the time, you know. So like I ask people, if I'm talking to someone and something comes up, like I already have like topics for the future planned that like you would never find on Google. It's just like an argument that's spurred out of me and my friends, and it's like super situational, like specific thing that will happen in the future. But like what's interesting is I have to decide, because I have like 2 segments really. I have 3 segments, like the unpopular opinions and then the debate topic. Like I have to decide if it's something you can debate, because like for instance, I don't think the debate topic will ever be a food thing, because there's only so much you can really argue. Like if I like the Chick-fil-A sandwich and someone else doesn't, that's about as far as we can get. But like it's something that you can like support a little bit. I mean, obviously it's still opinions, but like
rationale,
have reasons for it. So like that's the difference between like whether it's like saying Chick-fil-A is overrated would be an unpopular opinion. You couldn't really debate it with someone for that long.
Yeah. So I'm just curious. I have a question. What is your process like creating those questions? Because like, I mean, I read the first one, and since it seems like you're trying to go for those questions that people don't think about, how do you think about them? Like, how do you formulate them?
Yeah. So again, some of them I've come up with, but most of them I find online, whether it's, I mean, a variety of websites. I've Googled, my Google history is all, I've read everything that comes with unpopular opinions, but there's an unpopular opinions Reddit page that I've like scrolled
That
through all
is
the
a
time.
big rabbit hole that if you go down, you'll find some
Yeah.
very interesting things.
So,
Yeah.
and that one's interesting because there's only so many that I feel like I could have a long debate with, but still when I take them, like it's very helpful. But then the real process though of like behind the scenes of like how it works that like I plan to disagree with my guest is before my guest comes on, I'll send them like a Google survey and they'll just give me like one slit is like, what's your most unpopular opinion? They'll just straight up say it. So I already know what they're saying. And then I give them 15 of those statements, like singers should be allowed on talent shows, period. I'll give them like 15 around that. And they'll put agree or disagree. And then right under it, it has a scale of 1 to 10. They rate how much they care. And then I'll get that back when they're done. And I have all 15 of their answers. And I'll find the ones that I disagree with them on and they care a lot about. So like Luke, my last guest, put like disagree, singers should definitely be on talent shows, and had like a 9 out of 10 on caring. So like for me, I was definitely going to choose that one to debate among. Disagree.
That's
But there was other ones.
such an interesting process.
There was other ones. Yeah, there were other ones that he cared a lot about too, but I fully agreed. So I elected not to debate it because I could have played devil's advocate, but if I ever have the choice, I'd rather just actually think. Like,
yeah, it's harder.
Basically, my whole survey, I already have my opinion ready, so I just look at what people send me back, and then I make it work.
That's so interesting. I didn't even like think about it. That's I thought you were like, oh, this is just what it is. Now, do you agree or disagree? I'll take the other side.
And that's so thorough.
So yeah, that's so cool.
I didn't think of
yeah, like that's
I don't know how I thought about it.
Yeah.
And see, like, again, like this is, one of those things for anybody like watching or listening, like that we want like Nick to be able to inspire people and like help them understand the process of creating a podcast. Like that's one of those things that like I would have never thought about the way that you do that. I would probably, and I think both myself and most people are like, oh, he had a question, asked the viewer, and they just talked about it. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that we just, honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, we just like wrongly assume that you're just going to naturally agree on it. You know what I mean? Like, but no, that's a really cool
I think
process.
the way you do it just makes your whole argument more genuine.
Yeah.
Like you were saying that you could play devil's advocate, but it's way more fun if you actually disagree with something and you're like, no, like listen to my point. And also, like people can tell like if you're making things up and you're not on that side.
Yeah, authenticity is like very visible. And you can hear it in your voice, because that's another thing is like I think that you can hear enthusiasm in someone's voice. You can hear when they don't care at all. And so like for you, when you're purely like people are listening to you, like I think that if you're, whether that's like your views, your principles, your morals, just like the way that you see a question, like stands behind something, you're going to hear like the way you feel come much like through it much more, which is just in turn is going to be like a more engaging and interesting podcast to listen to, But so with that though, obviously you just said you have some like really cool questions for the future, and I'm excited to listen to all of them. But what do you think the future looks like for your podcast, whether that be in some years, whether that be in a month? What are your plans for that?
New, but like we know it's really new. Like you've only had one episode that you've published, but I just want to know.
Yeah, what are your plans?
Yeah, so generally the plan is just keep making episodes. In the immediate future, like I just got on Apple Podcasts.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I am in the process of getting on Google Podcasts and then Spotify. Will be in about 3 weeks. So that's all immediate goals, but I feel like I'm going to hit those goals. But I don't really have like landmarks for like my growth. Like honestly, as long as if I still have anyone listening, like I think it's fun. I have fun recording. I'm not like grinding through the recording just to get like feedback. I'm really like, I love recording it. And then I feel like, I had to choose a topic. Like for instance, I feel like a lot of people want to start a podcast just because it sounds fun. Like who doesn't want, everyone loves talking, and then who wouldn't want other people listen to you talk? But like, I feel like the general idea is like, I'm gonna get me and my 2 or my 3 friends, and we're just gonna talk and record it and put it on a podcast. But like no one's really gonna probably listen. So you have to have something. And like mine's pretty vague, but at least like
there needs to be a structure, I think.
But you have a structure. So like you say that it's vague, but like people know that, them coming to listening to very important opinions, they're going to get an unpopular opinion that they may or may not have heard. They're going to get a question that they probably haven't thought about. And then whatever else you add to it. Like, you say that it's vague, but you have a structure, and you've already set a precedent of like what the theme is going to be. And people know that.
Yeah. So really, I don't have any like super big plans. I think I'm probably going to bring in like a video podcast into it soon.
That's cool.
I don't know if I probably won't just record the whole thing and post it on like YouTube, because I know a lot of people don't listen to podcasts. So I'd rather have like something for them to watch. So my idea would be I might do a video, record the whole thing and chop up like the best moments and make like a highlight video, and then post that to YouTube. And then people who only watch YouTube or would just rather watch that, it's kind of like a movie trailer in the sense like hopefully
like a promo, like for the actual podcast.
Listen to the rest of it, or even if they don't, I mean that's good. That's good too. But
yeah,
it'd be like a good also, promotional material for you.
Yeah, you can put on your Instagram.
Yeah.
Like as Instagram TVs, and like another thing, is that like there are different types of viewers. So like with Young and Hungry, we're doing this, and we're providing like this Zoom call that people can be able to watch if they want. We're also turning it into a podcast that some people would rather listen. Like I know when I told my parents about this, my mom was like, "Oh yeah, I'd probably rather like watch that if it were me." And I was like, "That's funny, because I would probably rather listen to it." And so like I think that it's cool that you're going to be able to offer that, because I think that just like one allows you to have more exposure, and two just accommodates like different people in the way that they listen and learn. So I think that's a really cool idea for you to be able to do that. Also, the more you grow, or the more platforms you put yourself on, like the more you're going to grow, you know what I mean? You just are going to gain traction in different ways, which is super cool.
Well, I was a fan of your vlog channel too, so I was sad that like didn't happen, but it's okay. I'll live with it. I have Nick Alliston's podcast now.
Are you going to survive, right?
It was hard because I was there when he filmed it, like in the superlatives trip that we had. For those who are watching or listening, Nick and I both got senior superlatives, and I think that was one of your first episodes, right?
My first one.
Yeah, and I was there, and it was being filmed, and it was just so amazing, and I got to see my head in the background of his video. And it was just,
you made it, right?
I'm so happy that your podcast is doing so well.
Yeah.
Well, just for some like wrapping up questions, what has been the most fun part about this whole process, and what is some advice that you would want to give to someone who's young and hungry to start a podcast like you?
Yeah, the most fun part is recording the episodes. It's hilarious. Like I guess I haven't recorded much, but like I didn't realize how fun it would be, just like because if it's like a real, like I said, like I actually have my opinion, and we don't like argue before I record or something. Like I don't know what they're gonna say. So like it's really like it's pre-recorded. It's pre-recorded, but it's a live debate in the end.
Yeah.
So that it's just super fun. And hopefully in the future, like I have some plans, like for the beginning episodes, just like a lot of friends gets comfortable and it's like easier for me to set up. But like in the future, I don't know, like old teachers is something I want to do, and like
that would be so fun.
Yeah.
Like just like whether it's old teachers or like just anybody. Like I was, one thing I thought I was like a little frustrated with my topic at first was I was like, it's gonna be harder for me to get like these people with like credentials on my podcast, because like my podcast isn't like just a regular interview. But then I thought about it and I was like, these people already do regular interviews, and like it'd be kind of fun to hear like, I don't know who to use an example, but like somebody like Lambert's principal. Let's say I got Lambert's principal on, like you could probably find him sharing regular things on another podcast. But you want to hear Lambert's principal's most unpopular opinion.
It's funny. That's actually a really good idea.
Yeah, it's different. It's
just different. It's kind of like, I don't know if you've ever seen Hot Ones, but it's like the YouTube.
Yes. Oh my God, I love Hot Ones.
It's like an interview. YouTube. They interview, like this guy interviews like big celebrities, and they eat like 10 hot wings throughout the whole thing, and they get hotter.
It's spicier with every wing.
Yeah, so they're trying to eat hot wings.
Get harder with every wing.
Yeah, and the questions are super like different. Like they're way out there. This like the people being interviewed are always like, man, that's such a good question. Like I've never asked that. Like it's just like that's something different to watch because you already know a lot about these people. So that'd be my goal too.
Yeah, that's cool.
My advice, my number one advice, would just be like reach out to someone if you want to start a podcast, because like maybe it's me, maybe it's someone else. I don't know, but like
reach out to Nick. He's been through it.
Would you be willing if people wanted advice?
Yeah.
Okay, so anyone listening or watching, you can reach out to Nick.
Yeah, walk through with someone, like, just because they can help you a little bit. Other than that, just like you don't need like super nice stuff at the beginning.
That's good. That's interesting, because I feel
there's a level to it. Maybe don't get like the cheapest thing, but like it's not a big deal, honestly.
I think a lot of people get caught up in the equipment of it, and they don't start. There's plenty of people I know who are like, I really want to get into photography, but I don't have a camera. I'm like, I understand that, like, sure, like you need a camera, but you have an iPhone or a Samsung, and they have great cameras, and just go out there and start taking pictures. Like, pictures, it doesn't, like, I think a lot of people think a good camera means good photography. And I'm not disagreeing. Like, good cameras does, like, really make your photos look more professional, the lighting and everything, it's just more depth. All of that is great. But, like, photography is about creativity and, like, getting those new angles and just seeing what works. And if you're not going to go out there and do it, like, a new camera is not going to help you.
It's like, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. It's just, would you want, like, whatever your podcast idea is, and you're recording the whole thing, like, would that be a fun experience if you weren't recording it? You know, like, is that something like you would even do if it wasn't being recorded? Because, like, it's probably not the best podcast idea if you wouldn't.
Well, that's another thing also that I think about, like, for you specifically is, like, you know, I've known you for probably like 5 or 6 years now, honestly, like since middle school. And you always have been one that like likes to, I feel like you like these kind of like intellectually stimulating discussions. Like I always feel like you're available to like talk with your friends about, you know, interesting topics. Like you seem to me like somebody who like really likes to talk about like deep stuff sometimes, and whether it's, you know, actually heavy or just like an interesting question. Like I do feel like you're an inquisitive person and just in nature from like my perception of you, always like knowing you for a long time. So I think like one, it's more authentic, and two, like I just think that it's unique and super cool. So
my final tip is just have an idea, whatever it is, just like focus on something. Like if you actually just want to do a podcast of you and your friend talking, just pick one thing you guys like to talk about and make the whole thing about it, you know.
It's kind of niche, right?
Yeah, just make it have some kind of
like focused would be like I've heard podcasts where it's just two people talking, and like that's funny if you're like a really funny person and just like enjoy hearing you talk. But like usually like you'll get bored about just hearing like random stuff in their life. Like I need a little bit like, you know, with substance.
Until you know, like, and it depends if you're watching for the person or the idea, because like, like the big YouTubers who switch to podcasts often just talk about whatever the heck they want because people are just watching for you, not the idea. So it's fine. But like someone starting up with nothing, like me, I can't just talk about whatever. But if I have a topic, then maybe one day if I got big enough, I could talk about whatever because people will watch me. But no one's watching for me right now. Listening
it's a
for me
long-term goal.
Yeah, I guess.
It's actually really interesting because I have listened to people's podcasts, and I'll tell my mom, I'm like, hey, you should listen to this person. And my mom's like, I don't know why I would, like I have no idea who they are. And I'm like, I listen to them because like I like really look up to them, and I'm like, they're so cool, and like I'm like, oh, it's just so funny. And my mom's like, I don't relate to anything that they just said. Like I don't get why you like it so much. I'm like, it's so good. So well, I mean, you're a vlog star, Nick. Come on.
Yeah.
You're a YouTube star.
I know.
Well, I mean, those were kind of all of our questions. Unless you have anything else to add. Do you have anything else to add?
I don't think so.
Okay. No, I mean, you did. No. Yeah. Thank you so much for being here. Like, I want you to know, you know, I honestly learned so much from this last time. I really did not know, you know, the ins and outs of like whether that's buying equipment or like your creative process. I think that's super cool and super thorough. And like, I can just tell that, you know, even though like this is kind of like a fun idea for you, that you seem like really committed to it and excited about it. Do you want to say like your social media handles or whatever, so that people can, anybody listening or watching can like listen to your podcast or follow you?
Yeah, you can. The Instagram is at VIO Podcast. You can search Very Important Opinions on Apple Podcasts, and then in the future you'll be able to search the same in Spotify, but not yet.
Cool. Please go listen to him. Thank you again for coming and just inspiring us to continue on with our podcast journey. Ours isn't as structured, equipment and all of that wise, but just thank you for coming and like showing us what it is. I think your creative process was the coolest thing to learn about. I did not expect that, so that was pretty fantastic. And we just want to wish you all the luck for all your future podcasts and all the very important opinions you're going to talk about. Yeah, no, and we've listened to them. Like, I won't speak on behalf of Rai, but like, I know that your podcast is going to gain even more traction and continue to grow because it is like super unique idea, and the conversation was engaging and it was fun. So like, I can't wait to watch you guys or watch you grow and stuff like that. Can't wait for the second episode.
Yeah. What'd you say?
Not Monday.
I said I can't wait for the second episode.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited to listen to it. Also for anybody else that's listening or watching, this platform just wants to support like young and new professionals and people that are entrepreneurs and like trying really cool, bold endeavors. So if anybody listening or watching has any suggestions on somebody that's young and hustling on something that they really care about, please let us know. You can comment on the comment section of our Instagram. Our Instagram is Leudic Shop. It's spelled Leudic shop. You also can look us up on Facebook. You can DM us there, or you can email us at ludicshop@gmail.com. We would love to hear any suggestions that anybody has. But until next time, we really appreciate you, Nick. And anybody who wants to start a podcast, definitely reach out to Nick, because obviously it's clear that he's super passionate about it and has some really great insight to offer just about, this endeavor of his. So best of luck to you.
We just wanted to start this new, sorry, cut you off. We just wanted to start this new installment of our brand to be more than clothes and fashion. And as great as that is, we want to be supporting our community. And our last 3 guests have been people that we've grown up with. So it's just crazy to be where we are and starting these new businesses. And Leudic wants to stand behind these really amazing, cool young professionals.
Amazing,
literally
and
amazing.
Hardworking and ambitious, and I love seeing everybody work so hard for things that they're passionate about. It is super dope.
So make sure you follow Nick on all his socials, and make sure to listen to Very Important Podcast and follow us at
Very Important Opinions.
Very Important Opinions. I'm so sorry. And make sure to follow us on Leudic Shop. Until next time, thank you so much for watching or listening. Make sure to stay young and hungry and keep hustling. Bye, guys.
Thank you.